My name's Lucy Elkis. At the moment, I'm up on a moor and I'm being a runner, but my day job is as a nurse or as a cellist. Running is something that I started doing just to get from A to B, really, to build a bit of exercise into a busy life. I guess like most people do, for a little bit of fitness. But I didn't ever run just for pleasure, it was for purpose. I would get from home to work or build it into my commute. I started running a little bit further, first for fundraising. My daughter was diagnosed with cancer of her eyes when she was a baby. I had a beautiful group of women who asked if we could all run together, run one of the 10-kilometre races to raise money for the Childhood Eye Cancer Trust. And so that was a huge challenge. To get from my little commutes up to 10 kilometres felt like a massive achievement. And then I started meeting people who ran in a different way. They didn't run on roads, they didn't run just to get from A to B or run for speed, but they ran because it gave them a totally different freedom. And I remember the first time that I ran a kind of 5-mile off-road route by myself. I'd sat down and I'd planned this route on a map. I'd looked at the hills and looked at where I wanted to go. It was December, so it wasn't even like it was beautiful weather. But I went out and I got up into the hills and I felt a kind of, I guess, a power and a freedom that I'd never experienced before. And from there, friends, lovely friends, were just so encouraging and saying, just go further and higher. You don't have to go faster. Just go to places that fill your soul. For a while, it was enough just to get out by myself, but then I wanted different challenges, and so I planned my first ultramarathon for 2021. It was 50 miles off across the hills, and I remember looking at the route kind of 6 months in advance and thinking how amazing it would be to be that person who had done that thing. That's kind of what's got me to where I am now. So it no longer seems unachievable to do any distance, because I know it's all just ordinary people doing it, one foot in front of the other and keeping going. Running those kind of distances for me is all about that confidence in my body and the freedom that I have to set off with nothing. I need no equipment other than a pair of trainers, maybe a backpack to carry food in, and nothing else really. It gives me a real sense of possibility of what I can do just by myself. Top Withens holds a really special place for me. During the very first lockdown, I was dating and I met a woman online. We'd been having this very Victorian romance of writing each other poems, having conversations, sending letters, because the nature of lockdown meant that we couldn't meet in person. And then when we got to a point where we were able to meet, I wanted to bring her somewhere that really felt like it showed her a bit of me, as well as being a place we could walk together. So we met at Haworth and walked up across the moors up to Top Withens, and back round across the moors again. And it was a day not at all like today. It was one of the windiest days that I remember. We'd stop and find little bits out of the wind to talk, eat oranges, have a cup of coffee. So that's what I think of when I'm up here. We've been together for almost 3 years, and often come back up here. We'll go for runs together across the moors. She's from across the other side of the valley, so we can run between the places I'm familiar with and the places she's familiar with. It feels like this is one of the places it all started. I remember after meeting Jenny up here at Top Withens, we'd headed back home and I sat and wrote a poem. I wrote one about the trees here. I think when you look up at Top Withens, you see that one tree behind the building, and then as you get closer you see it's 2 trees, not one at all. And for me that was a real, I guess, sign of the strength that you get from those partnerships. It's a really inhospitable landscape up here in some ways, but you can see how those 2 trees have grown next to each other and took shelter from each other. And for me, that's part of why, I guess why this place holds something special for me.
My name is Ella Curtis. I am 20. We are Robbers Park in Saltaire. I like the birds flapping. I like water. I cycle in Robbers Park. I've been cycling for a long time. I am special cyclist because I Special Olympics in Great Britain. I feel like confident. I enjoy riding a bike up the hills, up hills, down hills. That's it. I like it.
My name is Aina J. Khan. I am a journalist and writer. Because I'm a journalist and I cover the news, international news, it's really fast paced. The things I'm reading and consuming, it can be overwhelming. So walking is a real source of respite for me in a way that I can just breathe and just calm down after a really busy day of work. I walk a lot. I do, and I love to walk. It's my form of therapy, it's my form of prayer, it's my form of meditation, whatever label you want to put on it, it really is kind of my form of self-care. And I think a lot of people might be surprised because I'm a woman and I'm also a visibly Muslim woman, but I really, really love to walk alone. I have walked in South Africa, I've walked in Lesotho, I've walked in Oman, I've walked in Jamaica, I've walked in Jordan, I've walked in a few countries that I've been travelling to recently. We're in Harden Grange Folly. The first thing that you notice is a woodland area of pine trees, and basically when you look upwards they're all towering above you, but not in a way that's ominous or intimidating. It's in a really kind of, at least for me, it was in a really comforting way. If you walk maybe some 10 to 15 minutes uphill, you'll find ruins kind of in the middle of nowhere, sat on a cliff top. When I got here for the first time, I felt free, I felt safe, and I felt like I was in a sanctuary actually as well. On a windy day, you can hear the pine trees just rustling, and they're quite tall. I think they're about maybe 50 to 70 feet tall. So, you know, they make a little bit of noise, but the sound that they make is so soothing. It sounds like water or some kind of stream that's trickling through, but it's not. It's actually the trees just kind of waving with the wind. And then when you stand on the rock face where the ruins are, there's a real sense of kind of rootedness. I feel really calm. My heart rate slows down. I'm actually breathing. I'm always seeking nature because I feel that it gives me peace. I think whether you're a person of faith or not, and I am a person of faith, there's a real sense of divinity in spaces like these as well. And I feel so much more connected to a higher power, whether it's God or somebody else. But for me, coming from a monotheistic faith, which is Islam, when I'm in spaces like these, I do feel more connected to God. And ironically, I also feel connected to myself as well. I feel like I have conversations with myself that I can't have when things are just going so fast and there's so much white noise, that it's just the silence of being in nature. That's the other reason I seek it. The silence is really soothing and it gives me clarity. I think my life would be very miserable if I wasn't connected to the outdoors. I would feel imprisoned. I genuinely feel like my soul yearns to be outside, and it's why literally every time I'm outdoors I'm just like this kid that's just been unleashed into the world. So I can't imagine life without it, basically.
I'm Rachel Coates and I'm a dairy farmer. I was born in Skipton. We lived in the middle of a wood. Being the only girl with lots of boys, I was quite a tomboy, so we used to play in the woods quite a lot and be almost a bit feral. In the spring, there was lots of garlic, wild garlic in the woods. We used to make garlic slides where we used to slide down the hills, and we just used to come home smelling to high heaven of garlic, but it was such great fun, and we used to be green and muddy, but clearly very happy. My father was a livestock auctioneer actually, so I was used to sort of livestock and farmers, but not farming. I went to agricultural college and I kind of wanted to be involved in the farming industry. I went to live in London and I hadn't realised until I was there just how much I missed the countryside. I did literally feel like a fish out of water. And I happened to marry a farmer. We don't really call ourselves farmers' wives these days because we are doing the farming. We're not just at home baking bread. We're actually physically farming as well. Do most jobs, apart from milking. I don't milk. Before I got married, I can't remember who told me now, but someone told me that I shouldn't learn to milk because I'd be too useful. And then my husband, who played cricket at the time, I'd be off playing cricket all the time, and I'd be milking, and that'd be it. And so I never learned to milk. It is always a different view every day. We do have quite a lot of different weather, and the moor changes colour all the time. The thing about the barn is that it makes you realise that you're only custodians of the farm or on the land, even though we don't own the farm, we are tenants, but you realise that the barn's got history, so it's been there longer than you, even though my husband's family have been here for nearly 50 years. So it kind of like centres that, sort of like puts a pin in time, and it makes you sort of seem smaller.
So I'm Kemi Gill, also known as KG. I am a youth worker and musician, born and bred in Bradford. I used to live in Homewood, and before Homewood, West Bowling, very urban and busy. I moved from a council estate to kind of a rural little village. I was 14 and we'd lived in Willesden for about 4 or 5 months at this point, and I actually, it was a phone call home from the teachers at school to my mum, and my mum was pretty angry, so I come out for a walk. And I think I sat here till it started to get dark. It must have been what felt like 2-3 hours, but it probably was only an hour and a half. And for me it was just calming, and you hear people talking about the effect that nature can have and the effect that your surroundings can have, but I didn't really believe it until I found this spot. And for me, this is a very freeing space, and this route, it leads down to a waterfall. I feel calm. I feel like I am exactly where I'm meant to be when I'm here. Yeah, it's just, it transports the way I feel. I could be coming up feeling stressed or sad or angry, and I sit down and just take it in, and in half an hour, I'm feeling calm and well grounded. I think somebody in the village told me, if you go a little bit further down there's a waterfall, and wow. So when I seen that, it was like, I can't believe this is in Bradford, I can't believe it's less than a half an hour walk from my house. It's like, to have something like that on your doorstep, not only does it make you feel a certain type of way, it makes you appreciate what you've got. I think there's something majestic about water flowing as well, and the sound of it. I think that also transports you to another place where you can, just be yourself and be free. It's very freeing. So for me, it kind of acted as a turning point, and I know that's a very big thing to say because it's nature, but coming from one type of life to a different type of life and surroundings, you know, it acted as my comforter. So if I had any issues, or if I argued, or like I was saying, if I felt sad or any type of way, I just walk to the water, and yeah, it just acted as like my safe place, kind of, somewhere where, you know, nobody's judging, I can just be me. I've never been bored sat up here. There's something magical about looking out and not seeing no chaos going on, and for me it's freeing. It's like basically the universe telling me that you've got an opportunity. This is your opportunity, you know. And yeah, just being one with nature and just being still.
My name's Evie Manning and I'm a theatre director. I live one street away from where I grew up, in BD3 in Bradford. But yeah, I live one street away from my mum's house. So Spareland was this place that from probably the age of like 7 to 10 or 11, me and my brothers and all the kids on the street basically took over, and we had loads of dens, we had tree swings, we had a whole world on Spareland, and we would be out all day, literally probably from like, yeah, as soon as we woke up until really late. And Spareland is just like really overgrown part of land, so it's just like out the back of the houses, and it's just like brambles and nettles, and there's a bit of a dumping ground because people used to dump a lot of rubbish there as well, so there was always quite a lot to make dens out of. We used to have wars, we'd call them wars, so we'd be looking out the window maybe at home, and then if we saw any kids from another street, then we'd go and have a war. But we were really at war, so we were throwing like, yeah, house bricks at each other, and we'd have barbed wire to make our barricades with, and we'd throw them at each other. When we were little, there was the 3 of us, but then there was lots of other kids' units, you know, and then it was quite like, you know, there'd be little packs from different households coming together, and so sometimes we'd be at war with each other, or there'd be multiple dens for multiple kind of households, and obviously a lot of the time my brother would be against me, or, you know, I'd be kind of banished from a den. I think as a kid, I mean, I was very resilient and determined, and so I would never really get upset, or even if you fell over, I mean, it's classic, but you just wouldn't cry, and you'd be proud of how many scratches you got that day, or how many scars or bruises. You'd always be showing off about that sort of thing, so I think I was quite hardy. I always used to put these little plays on, which was really me just kind of gathering up whoever was around, any kids, quite like. And so I'd just kind of gather them up, and then I'd have had like an idea for a story. That was my first time directing, getting kids to do things. Or I might have found some clothes that I'd get them to wear like as a costume, and we'd use like leaves for special effects, or we'd use the kind of different dens, I suppose, as little theatres. I had like an imaginary world called Evie's World, and I was always kind of writing little stories in there, and then sometimes I'd get other kids to be part of them and bring them to life. I remember feeling quite determined all the time because we were quite free and we were feral and we were running around, but then I think I also had to really kind of be tough and kind of hold my ground, or, you know, we were having fun, but always with a bit of a purpose. So it was always like we're building a barricade, or we're doing this or doing that, and so there was always a kind of quite a strong will going on at the same time. We had like a metal jungle because there was all this metal growing out. We had a nettle jungle where we just threw pallets in, and then we were kind of, I think by this point, immune to nettles and brambles and stings and stuff. So, but we had lots of different worlds, and I think it felt massive. Even though now, if you look at it, it's just a strip of land behind the houses. It's the length of the street, but it felt so big. So I think there was a magic in that, and I think there was a magic in us feeling very powerful. So I think we felt quite powerful there because we could kind of make up what we did and no one bothered us, and we just did our thing, really. makes me remember how expansive it was and how big it felt and how possible things felt. So it was always like a space of like potential, which I feel like now as an adult I still feel like that actually. I still feel like there's a lot of potential. So it all comes from somewhere.
My name is Meryl Clark. I'm a flower farmer. When I was a child, we lived sort of on the outskirts of Leeds. There were fields not too far away, and we were near the rhubarb triangle. So we used to play in amongst the rhubarb and get chased off by the farmer. But we used to use them pull them out and use them as parasols and umbrellas. And yeah, we used to play a lot in the fields. And then we used to blackberry pick, and Mum and Dad had a big corner plot garden. Dad really liked doing the hard landscaping, making rockeries and flagging. And Mum, she still at 83 is gardening every single day. So got it from there, I suppose. They gave me a corner of the garden that I could use as a child. As I got to my teenage years, herbs really interested me. And I used to grow those and dry them and make teas and things out of them. I went to horticultural college from school and then started work after that straight away for the local authority, for the Parks Department, and then left because I ended up being drowned in paperwork and not actually gardening and working with the flowers, which I loved. So I set up a specialist garden maintenance business. Janet was an artist. Both her and her husband were really famous trompe-l'oeil artists. They worked all over the world and bought a house just up the road and wanted to set a beautiful garden up for painting and for inspiration for the work. I had a neighbour and she knew Janet and Paul, and she heard from them that they were looking for somebody who knew what they were doing. So she mentioned it to me, took me up, and it was just one of those, where you meet somebody and instantly, you love them. She was an artist, she wasn't a florist, but she was able to just pick the flowers and make the most beautiful bunches for gifts for friends. And I used to sit watching her thinking, how's she done that? And it was because of the colour. She put them together beautifully. And that made me want to start arranging. That eventually sent me off to college to learn a bit more about it. Yeah, so she did have a massive impact on me, yeah. I loved watching her paint, and she knew she could rely on me to see to her garden, which meant the world to her. So, yeah, that was really, really important time for me that year. She had a terminal illness. I lost my favourite auntie and two grandmothers and my dad, and I'd got a small child, and it was just too much pressure, and it resulted in an autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis. The specialist did say, we will have you gardening again and we will have you dancing, because I used to do salsa. And he was right. I mean, it took quite a while, but so now I have a drip every 4 weeks and it sort of controls it, knocks it back a bit. I was always determined to get back. It was being outside, and the gardening is such a love of mine that there was no way I was ever going to give that up. Went back to floristry college to learn about the flowers and started growing flowers for cutting. And just got a real bug, and eventually I got offered a little piece of land here and started doing it on a larger scale. Do I have a favourite season? Yeah, definitely spring. No, summer. Autumn? Definitely not winter. All of them. I think they've all got their own beauty, apart from winter. Because I don't like being cold and wet. They're all important in their own way, aren't they? They're all beautiful. Autumn saddens me slightly because I know winter's coming. Spring's full of hope. But in summer, the warmth, the sun on your face, the abundance of flowers. Probably summer, yeah. Being outside is everything to me, really. If I couldn't be outside, I wouldn't really have any point to me.
My name is Jenny Ramsden. I have two roles, so I'm ordained as a priest in the Church of England, and within that role I am the interfaith advisor for the Diocese of Leeds. I also work for a charity called Religions for Peace UK, bringing women of faith together to challenge gender-based religious violence. I was brought up by parents who had no faith. My dad was a communist, actually. My mum, I would say, was agnostic, so I wasn't brought up going to church or with any sort of faith at all. Some people describe kind of big conversion moments. That isn't my story at all. I think there was a lady in our village, the vicar's wife, who started a youth group, and it was a Christian youth group, and I just went along because there was nothing else to do. But there was something about what she was saying that kind of must have sunk in. My life was quite chaotic. My dad was an alcoholic. Home was quite a tricky place to be, and I think there was just something about the kind of comfort and stillness of what I was hearing in church and the place itself that spoke to me, really. So just gradually I just got a sense of God's presence in my life, and that's kind of stayed ever since. Outdoors and walking and creation is an absolutely integral part of my faith. I feel most close to the divine when I'm out in nature. I'm really drawn to the Celtic Christian tradition, and they have this understanding that to understand the divine, to understand the creator, you have to be in creation. So they would wade out into rivers to pray. I've never done that, but for me, being in creation is the place I feel closest to the creator. So we are in a place called the Brontë Waterfalls, up above Haworth, and I've brought you here because it is the place that I most often come when I feel that need to be with God in whatever sense that is. So I suppose particularly if I'm feeling stressed or anxious, I feel like I've got a lot of worries, this would be a place I would come to work through them almost, and to sit and reflect and pray. So the stone is something I noticed on one of my walks here. It's got a quote from a psalm on it which says, "O Lord, how manifold are thy works, in wisdom hast thou made them all, the earth is full of thy riches." And I just noticed this one day when I was walking here, and it really spoke to me and it touched me because somebody, and I don't know who, but somebody has obviously come to this space and felt the same as me, that it speaks to them of God in some way. I just feel really calm, very peaceful, very connected with nature. That in turn helps me feel connected with something greater than myself. I guess I would name that God or the divine, but other people might name that something different. There's the concept in many faiths, particularly Christianity I think, but all faiths, this idea of a thin space, a place where the gap between heaven and earth is really thin, and to me this is a thin place.
My name is Nyarai Urbanek. We are in Bowling Hall allotments, East Bowling. I am African and I was born in Zimbabwe, raised in South Africa, and now living in England. I came here when I was 18 as a teenager. So from Johannesburg to Bradford, a very big culture shock. When I first arrived, I'd done my matric in South Africa, so I went to college. I studied a pre-BA in Dewsbury, and it's a pre-BA foundation in art. I found out that I was really good creatively, so it kind of unlocked a part of me that was always there. So I went to university, so then I changed my course to landscape architecture. I think my family as a whole, I have green fingers. So it's always been a part of us, and I just kind of stepped it up a gear. So I always knew that I wanted to work with something to do with nature, but also in a creative way. So I fell on horticulture, gardening, which is just right. I started doing volunteering firstly around garden centres, just so that I can understand the plants and so forth. And then from there, the creative side, designing gardens and so forth. So it's just always been there. My mum, in fact my aunties, all of them had green fingers for as long as I can remember. Even if they didn't have that much space, they'd have some plants. So it's just coming from there, from the female side, matriarch side. To get the allotment, it took me about 4.5 years. It's a long waiting list. I grow in the allotment, firstly, things that we don't want to buy in the supermarket. Times are tough. And then secondly, I grow going to better my kids' lives, my life, so medicinal things. And those medicinal things are then used in products which I make, natural handmade products, like skincare products. So the allotment is just for feeding us and for taking care of us inside and out. My dream is to make it a healing allotment. I would like for people to come in here and feel a sense of healing, so I want to plant a lot of plants that can do that and create a space where anybody can walk in and not so much forget about their problems, but accept some of their problems that they can't change. So that is the ideal, that is the vision. We're a long way away, but I would be quite happy and content if that were to happen.
My name is Jo Foster. I live on a farm in Burley and Wharfdale near Ilkley Moor. My father's father was a farmer and my father's grandfather was a farmer. My childhood was very happy. Everything was farm or agriculture orientated. We helped outside. We weren't allowed to be sat watching TV when we got home from school, or if we were, we had to hide and watch it because we'd get a knock on the window, "Come and help me with some cows." I got into horses when I was very young, but I was never allowed a pony until I could look after it myself. So I was allowed a pony when I was 11 years old. So the horses are the thing that took me on my career path. I was rather headstrong and determined. So when I started race riding, I was 21. I was always been a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and when I saw amateurs race, which is at point to points, I thought, oh my goodness, I could do this. I literally went out and bought myself a pointer because my parents said they'd buy me a wheelchair before they bought me a racehorse. I said, well, that's fine, I'll just go and buy it myself then. And then went for lessons, got to know people, went to workplaces, went riding out, went to learn as much as I possibly could, and started riding in races. And then it was just about winning, and it was about the adrenaline buzz it gave me. And I did really well. I came second in the nationals. I was a Yorkshire champion 3 times. I rode 75 winners, and then it turned to training. So it was November, a rainy November morning. We'd taken the horses up to the gallops. I had some owners coming to see me. My son was at school. We'd just been to the sales the week before and bought some new horses. I was riding one of them. There's a long line of fences and I was jumping over the first one. And then it started getting too fast. It bolted. And I was shouting at everybody to get out of the way. I couldn't stop it because it was running blind, completely running blind. Young horse, scared, doesn't know where it is. It ended up stopping and swerving. It smashed into the back of something. I came off it and fell on my back onto a rotavator. The horse was okay, actually. It just got a cut to its leg, but it was fine. And then I tried to get to my feet and I couldn't. I could feel my feet. I couldn't feel my legs and my arms. So I thought, oh, well, I'm all right, but I can't stand up. I really can't stand up. Anyway, everybody came to help me then. And they called the ambulance. So then I was in LGI for 3 weeks. I wasn't allowed to stand. so had to go in a wheelchair. Fortunately, my parents said, right, you can come to us, we'll make one of the sitting room into a bedroom for you. But that's when I looked at the view, and that was the lowest point I've had in my whole life, because I was trapped. And I've never had that feeling of being trapped. The view that I ended up looking at was a view that I'd grown up waking up in the morning or going to bed at night and looking out of the little window up towards Blubberhouses Moor. The same view I was looking out over 40 years later from a wheelchair out of my parents' lounge, wishing I was there and realising that's what I had missed and was missing. To be able to have the freedom of that view and that wildness and that reckless abandon, and that you could feel the rain on your face and the elements around you and be part of the world and the earth and nature. How did I take that for granted? I was in a very bad place when I went to Jetbury House, and they were fantastic. So it was a year and a half of rehabilitation that got me back to where I needed to be and gave me a new direction, helping other people then that were in that situation that I'd got into. So I decided that I would further my education, use my brain, and start helping people. So I went and did a counselling course at Leeds College, which then led on to a postgraduate degree at Leeds Beckett in sports psychology. Jetbury House opened that door to allow me to get to there.
My name is Shanaz Gulzar. I'm the Creative Director of Bradford UK City of Culture 2025, and I'm an artist. I was born in Keighley at Airedale Hospital. I grew up in a 2-up, 2-down terrace, 8 siblings, mum and dad. We had a cellar and we had an attic and we had 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and a living room. So you can imagine it was a bit crowded. I grew up constantly looking up at the hills and wanting to get up there to see what the view was like up there. That's what was really important to me. I feel like it's in my DNA. My parents came from Azad Kashmir, from Pakistan, which is all hills and mountains and valleys and rivers and reservoirs. Then you look at Yorkshire and it's hills and rivers and reservoirs and little mountains. When I move, when I walk, it helps me solve problems. I can't sit still when it comes to kind of trying to think through something. I feel like I need to move in order to activate my brain. Some of my best ideas, my best pieces of work have been when I have been walking. And I'm not a landscape painter or anything like that, but what I love about the landscape is that walking is an art form in itself. The landscape requires you to exist in it in a particular way, depending on what it is and where it is and what time of day and what the weather is doing. All of that means that your choice is out of your hands to some extent. This landscape is just above Riddlesden Village in Keighley. It's that intersection between Keighley and Ilkley. So I have walked in that landscape, in the rain, in the snow, when it's sunny, when it's windy, at night, early morning, during the day. But each time I go up, it feels different. I'm sat on the rock, I can feel the air and I can feel the wind. I keep thinking I can feel the sun, but I know I'm making that up. I can feel the rock, but it doesn't feel hard. It actually feels comfortable, which, considering it's, -5 up on the moors, 3rd week in January, that's quite something, I suppose. But that also tells me just how comfortable I am right here, right now, in this moment. I feel like I can breathe. I feel like I can exhale. Like I'm not holding on to everything, like I'm letting go of things. I feel like my shoulders are unfurling. I remember saying to you, this is why I'm never going to move. Because we just looked around us, and in the 2 hours that we were there, the mood of the place shifted. And it's emotional. We connect to it.
Every full moon, I get together with a group of women and we're called the Au Naturel Swimmers. So we're au naturel because we go in the water without a swimming costume. We don't wear wetsuits, we wear bobble hats, little boots and swimming gloves. We all go together, usually in the dark, to a moonlit reservoir or river or lake and immerse ourselves in water naked, and then we generally have a little bit of food and perhaps a fire and we sing, and it's just a complete contrast to modern life. I think the age range would be early 30s to around maybe late 70s. Yeah, so yeah, it's quite a stretch really actually, isn't it? But we're all women and we all enjoy swimming and we're all prepared to go on a little adventure every full moon. The swimming makes you feel alive, but also there's something about floating in water in the dark with only the moon and perhaps someone who's got a head torch on. It's kind of desensitizing, but at the same time you are fully in your senses. So you're not seeing, but you're feeling, and the water is silky and it embraces you and it kind of supports you and you just feel loved. And the group has got that feel about it as well. So you're cold but warm, you know, incredibly happy. So you just feel completely at peace and at one with each other, the water, the fire, the song.
Then we'll know spring's begun when the green man comes a-walking. Then we'll know. High on the hillside, crouched by the stone wall, the shepherd is a-sheltering away from the squalls. He curses the weather and loudly he calls. Oh, when will this winter be over? When will this winter be done? When the green man walks the forest, then we'll know spring's begun. When the green man comes a-walking, then we'll know. When the green man stalks the forest, then we'll know.
Very nice.
Lovely. It was only 27 verses, there should be 36.
There was only 4.